Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cinemateq. It is time for the weekly wrap-up. Used to be the weekly news wrap-up, but changing it around a little bit. We're not only going to be talking about news stories that you want to talk about. I'm adding in a little section where I'm going to include some streaming gems that maybe you'd like to check out while you are locked down, while you're staying at home, while you are social distancing. Gonna get into all of that, but first, I would just like to give a cheers with this ginormous glass of wine, because ladies and gentlemen, it has been a bit of a day in TJ land. I won't get into all of the specifics, but when I came back into my apartment last night, there was a pool of toilet water in the middle of my floor. It did not come from my toilet. There were other issues in my apartment due to this sudden appearance of toilet water, and part of that was my smoke alarm not working in a way that was in any way good. That concluded in an epic crescendo at around 11 a.m. this morning, where it just started beeping like once every minute, and then after that, whenever it felt like it. So it was not the best day. And last evening, when I was disposing of said toilet water and washing my floor with disinfectant, trying to get the smell of toilet water out of my apartment, mostly successfully, it's just not been a fun time. Not been a fun time. But now the weekend is here, the smell of toilet water is mostly gone, and I have a big old glass of red wine, and I am going to share it with you right now. I'm not going to chug it, that would be ridiculous. I am not a frat boy. Nor have I ever been one. But to this, I just want to say cheers to you. I hope your weekend has started as well as mine. I see Dory in the chat. Thank you very much for your condolences for my day. But now it's getting better. Now we're going to have some fun. We're going to talk about the film news. I shouldn't have said fun right there, because the first part of the film news that we're talking about is actually going to be not fun at all. But them's the breaks when you're living in a COVID-19 kind of world. So, without further ado, how about we just start getting into the film news? Let me know if you're here. Let me know where you are, where you're from, all that good things. I already mentioned that Dory is here. Good to see you. I'm not keeping an eye on the concurrent viewers, so I have no idea how many people are actually watching. If there are anyone watching besides Dory, and maybe someone else. I have a feeling someone else is out there. But let's move on from that. Let's talk some film news. And we are going to start off with a bit of a sad story. Well, actually a very sad story. Cinemark, a very large cinema chain in the United States, I believe it is the second largest, only to AMC, they have laid off almost 18,000 workers, and they've furloughed about 50% of their corporate staff. And that is just not very good. Now, last week, the big news story that I wanted to share with you guys was that AMC is probably going to go bankrupt. And something I want to emphasize right off the bat with this Cinemark story is that they are not really in that dire of trouble yet. Obviously, laying off all these workers, furloughing half of the corporate staff. The CEO is foregoing their entire salary, but they're not as bad as AMC is currently. It's not great. It's not wonderful for them, but they're not on the edge of bankruptcy like AMC is. That's actually talked about a little bit in this article, where the author talked about the status of the stock of Cinemark, saying that it is now at neutral, whereas before, when we were talking about AMC, that stock actually went from neutral to sell, which means bad things if you are someone who is invested in that company. So the fact that it's at neutral means that, once again, it's not wonderful. It's not roses. No one at Cinemark is thinking to themselves, today was a good day. But it's not as bad as AMC. Now, also mentioned in this article is the fact that Cinemark is looking to get some of that $2 trillion that the United States government promised for COVID-19 relief. That obviously can help them out a bit. And I'm also hoping that based on the fact that they're laying off so many of their staff, that those people will be able to get the emergency funds that were promised for individuals who were laid off. So, yeah, my heart goes out to them. I know what it's like to worry about where your next paycheck's coming from and how much that paycheck is going to be. I hope that they're able to get the support that they can from the United States government. Hopefully they don't have to wait for a check that has a very specific signature on it and they're able to get their money quickly. And yeah, this is just another example of how COVID-19 is affecting literally everything in the film industry. This, as I said, is the second largest, I believe, cinema chain in the United States, and here they are, having to lay off 18,000 people. It's a shame. It's a tragedy, and I just hope that every single one of those workers is going to be okay. Moving on from this, and if you ever want me to talk a bit more, if you have any questions, please just get in the chat. Let me know. I've got my chat window open here. Chat window live for you in the stream as well, so you can see whatever it is you're writing. It might take a couple of comments for everything to get there, but it'll get there eventually. So now we're going to move on to the next little bit of COVID-19 related news, and that is slightly adjacent to the film news that we typically talk about, but it felt important to bring it up. And it is that the San Diego Comic-Con for 2020 has been canceled, and they have just gone ahead and said, we're doing it in 2021, we're not delaying it, we're not postponing it, we're just canceling it outright for the year 2020. And that seems like a smart move, considering we don't really know how everything is still going to play out. Comic-Con is typically held in July. I believe this year it was going to be July 23rd. And that is, 3 months away, a little over 3 months away. And we really don't know if people are going to be able to gather in large groups in July. I doubt it. I doubt it very highly. And this just seemed like a very good move on their part. Might as well crush people's dreams as quickly as they can so they can figure out other things to do or new ways of going about things. And part of me thinks that this cancellation came kind of late comparatively. As an example, I typically go to VidCon every year in Los Angeles. And while Los Angeles is not San Diego, it's still California. And VidCon usually takes place at the end of June, which would have been about a month before the San Diego Comic-Con. VidCon itself was canceled a while ago. They were right on top of that because they understood everything that was going on. And so part of me feels like San Diego Comic-Con, they were holding out hope for one, that they'd be able to do some kind of version of the San Diego Comic-Con. But also I have a feeling that a lot of the studios who usually bring things like trailers and announcements and things like this, that they just weren't showing up. They weren't booking Hall H. They weren't going to be, telling people that, oh, this new thing that we just created is available on Netflix right now or anything like that. And I think that's largely has to do with the fact that a lot of media companies, their calendars have shifted and they don't necessarily know where those properties or when those movies or when those television shows are actually going to debut. So they don't want to start the hype machine for something that might come out 15 months down the road, 20 months down the road. At this point, we have no way of knowing. So I feel like it's not mentioned here in this article, but I feel like that also would have had something to do with it. Kind of like how South by Southwest was going to go ahead for a long time, but then Twitter and Facebook and Amazon and Warner Brothers and a lot of media companies were just saying, like, you know what, we're not actually going to be there. And then South by Southwest kept saying, like, well, we're still going to go ahead. And then, the city of Austin then said, no, you're not. You're not going ahead anymore. So it's slightly different in that way. But I just have a feeling that they kept going on and on and on and on and on. San Diego Comic-Con thought they might be able to do something, but they just had companies like Marvel and WB, etc. And I don't know this for a fact. I'm just assuming those companies saying to San Diego Comic-Con, like, nope, we're not doing it. We're not showing up this year. So, sorry. And now it's all gone. So, there's that. RIP San Diego Comic-Con for this year alone. But I will say, as far as COVID bad news, that's the last one. That's the last one we're talking about. No more bad COVID bad news. Only COVID good news. Nope. There is no COVID good news. But nothing depressing. Nothing depressing anymore. Only feel-good stories for the most part. So next, we're going to move on to something that maybe we should have expected, although maybe not. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Excuse me. That wine's going down real smooth. Parasite came out on Hulu just the other day for all of the American viewers out there, and apparently it set a bunch of records, and it's doing very, very well for itself. Cheers to Parasite. So according to this article, Parasite is the most streamed foreign language film or independent film, I believe. I think that's what they said. I do read through these articles before I talk to you guys about them, I swear. It's just sometimes these paragraphs are so big and it's hard to pick out the keywords. The streaming giant confirms to IndieWire that in just 1 week, Parasite has become the most streamed independent or foreign language film among all titles available on Hulu. So that's really, really impressive. We're not talking about like first week comparisons. We're talking about the entirety of the runs of independent or foreign language films on Hulu. There are films on there, potentially, foreign language independent films that have been there since Hulu have launched, and Parasite just came onto the scene and was like, nope, I'm king. And I think what also is amazing here, and even IndieWire spotlighted this by saying it was even more impressive, Parasite is now the second most watched movie overall on Hulu ever among titles currently available to stream. And to give a little bit of context, a little bit more context, IndieWire said, what that means is that in 1 week, Parasite outstreamed the lifetimes of popular titles such as How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, A Quiet Place, Transformers The Last Night, which is a weird thing to put in there because no one's going to watch that movie because it's trash. And we know this. But also Creed 2 is what they mentioned. So, well done to Parasite. It's things like this that make me believe that Parasite will actually go down in history as one of the all-time great films. It has everything going for it at this point. And in the kind of world that we're in now where the story of a film, and I don't mean the plot, the narrative, but the story of a film's release is in some way going to play into how we look back and determine its greatness, quote unquote. And at this point, there's nothing that we can really say negatively about the release of Parasite. It conquered at Cannes. It did extremely well at the American box office, at the worldwide box office. It's the highest grossing Korean film of all time. It won 4 Academy Awards when everyone thought that 1917 was going to win those Academy Awards. And its storybook existence just seems to continue on and on and on. I can only imagine the number of video essays we're going to see on this film on YouTube in the coming months and years. There have already been quite a few. And I think it might be too early to say this, but when Sight and Sound does their every 5-year, every 10-year best of list, I wouldn't be surprised to see Parasite on that list and potentially in a fairly high position. Typically, it takes a few lists for a film to climb up into maybe the top 10. It took Vertigo at least 2 decades, I think, to get into the number 1 spot, as an example. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it had a very, very strong showing. So, once again, I will say cheers to you, Parasite. Well done. Well done. Also wanted to mention this film because a lot of Bong Joon-ho content that I put out on this channel tends to do pretty well. I put out a video yesterday about, it was a trailer reaction to 3 modern classics of Korean cinema, one of them being Bong Joon-ho's Mother, which was cool. And now I really want to watch that movie, and I think I may have gotten a copy of it, so maybe that's something I'll watch this weekend. I don't know. You guys tell me. And we got Dory saying "kanpai." I think that's cheers in Japanese, in Mandarin. Anyways, skål. I think that's Norwegian, Swedish. I forget. So let us move on now from praising Parasite to looking at the Cannes Film Festival and how they are changing their market. This is not the big Cannes news that we're going to be talking about a little bit later. This is something a little bit different, and I'm also going to bring up something that might be like an insanely cool loophole that I wasn't aware of, which might come out of this, and I'm going to have to do a bit of research on it. But anyways, let's just go through what this news is first. Cannes Film Festival has a marketplace. It's considered the biggest, largest, most important film marketplace of the year. This is when films get bought and sold to all kinds of major distributors, studios, what have you. Like, this is the best place to get a deal done. So because the Cannes Film Festival is no longer running, there was still an appetite from studios, from distributors, etc., to have the marketplace still happen in the spring, because it allows people to get their schedules and calendars together for the summer-fall seasons, and delaying it or pushing it off would affect those releases. And obviously, people are going to need content in the near term, so this is going to help with that. So Cannes figured out a way to host this whole thing virtually, which is pretty cool. To quote this article, it will be hosting virtual booths for sale agents, video meetings, virtual pavilions for institutions, and online screenings during its upcoming Digital Market Edition, which will run from June 22nd to June 26th. So that's interesting. And also, I just want to point out here, because it kind of leads into what I'm going to be talking about in a second. The online screenings, meanwhile, will be scheduled across 15 virtual cinemas in order to maintain a momentum for viewing and deal-making. Kind of this idea that when a film first screens, people will just be clamoring for it and being like, "Oh my God, did you see this thing? It was the most insane movie ever." And then people show up for that second screening and they were like, "Oh my God, they were right. This is one of the best movies ever." And then the bidding war starts, and some company ends up paying $18 million for a film that might be seen by 1,000 people. You don't know. And then also here, reruns will the wine's already getting to my tongue. Reruns will also be organized for buyers in different time zones. In order to prevent piracy, the march will use a strict security measures, including DRM, individual watermarks, and real-time management and monitoring. So all pretty interesting, all pretty high-tech. It all makes sense considering we're dealing with films that have not officially premiered in a lot of cases. You have to remember that the Marche des Films will include films that would have been part of the Cannes Film Festival, so would have been having their world premieres there. So these are films whose world premieres have been put off, technically, until either whenever Cannes actually ends up happening, which we'll talk about a bit later, or they show up at a different film festival in the future, like Weeks gets on the internet, is downloaded by the pirates, and ends up on Brentflix, as an example. Then that's real bad, and that could hurt a film's momentum, because the mystery and the awe that you can build up through a festival run is kind of just gone. Whether or not that actually is something that directors should be concerned about, it's certainly something that they are concerned about. And I believe that if you direct a film or you produce a film and you own the rights to the film, then you should have at least some say in how it is originally released. After the fact, piracy will happen, and as a lot of studies have shown, piracy is actually good for a lot of media properties. So, not that I'm advocating for that. So now I just want to bring up this little loophole thing that I need to look into a bit more, because this article by Variety kind of spurred it in my mind, and now I'm wondering, could this be an interesting thing? So accreditation for the Cannes Marche Online will soon open and will be available at an early bird rate of 95 euros or 97 US dollars until May 29th. The full rate will include 1 year Cinando membership, which doesn't really mean anything for anyone. I took a look at it. I thought maybe it would be kind of cool for me as kind of a media film professional. Might be good for networking, things like that. But what is interesting here is that the Marche de Film, as we just talked about, is going to be having a lot of screenings. A lot of films that are looking for distribution are going to be available to screen in like the 15 virtual theaters and what have you. So if I can get accredited somehow for this 97 US dollar thing, which would be what, $4,000 Canadian? I'm just kidding. It'd probably be around 150 bucks Canadian at this point. Then can I just see all of these films that haven't come out yet? And I imagine that the accreditation is not just going to be as simple as paying like $150 and then suddenly having access to all of these films. I assume that there's going to be something in there where I have to work for a certain company to be able to get access to them. It has to be a company that's participating in Cannes in some meaningful way, either as a buyer, a distributor, a seller. But if you were to work that out, just imagine paying 150 bucks if you're Canadian or 100 bucks if you're American and being able to stream potentially all of the major independent film releases that are going to come out for the next 12 months. Sounds kind of worth it, doesn't it? Sounds very much worth it to me. So that's something I think I'm going to look into and see what it all means, because I'm curious about that. I'm sure that they have already figured out that people are going to want to do things like this, and so they've already put measures in which would stop people from doing this kind of stuff. But man, if you could get that to go, that would be really cool. And also, I think it's worth mentioning here, with the 1 year membership to Cinando that you get when you get your accreditation, there are screeners available on Cinando as well. Obviously, there's no vetting for them. You really have no idea if it's going to be good or bad unless you've heard about it at other film festivals. But still, if it's something that's just added on for free and you're then able to watch these screeners for free, that's a value. That's a really good value, actually. So that's something I think we should all keep an eye on and all put in the back of our minds as we're thinking about ways to get more content while we're all under lockdown. Moving on now to Robert Eggers. I will give him a cheers as well. He's a good man. He was having a pretty good time before this whole pandemic thing started, as many of us were. He was in production of his third film, The Northman, which was going to feature Alexander Skarsgård, Nicole Kidman, Anya Taylor-Joy, Bill Skarsgård, I believe, as well. And it was going to be a 10th century Viking revenge film. Sign me up 1,000%. He's using the same cinematographer that he used on... Sorry, I shouldn't say used. He's working with the same cinematographer that he worked with on The Lighthouse, so you know it was going to look super good. And everything was just going right. And then COVID-19 happened, and production was halted a week before they were going to go to camera. That sucks. I wonder actually if it would have been worse for them to get like a week into shooting and then they had to stop, and then they would have had to stop. I don't know about that. Still, bad all around. However, something that I just wanted to point to here, more as a way of just keeping people's attention on this film, because I can't help but feel like it's going to be incredible just based on everyone who's involved. Eggers developing as a director and just being already someone so important to watch, because they're going to deliver something that is unique in almost every regard and will probably be viewed by the mainstream because it's going to get a bit of a larger release, even than The Lighthouse, which got a pretty substantial release for an independent film. So, yeah, 100,000% excited for this film. But something that I found interesting here is that Eggers talked about how the production of this film is so large that he had to change his pre-production routines and what he did, and it actually makes a lot of sense. His first two films, you could probably count the amount of characters on The Witch on two hands, and you could certainly count the amount of characters for The Lighthouse on one. They all feature 1 to 2 sets at the most. Sorry, when I say sets, I mean locations. So when you think about The Witch, there's the very beginning of the film where they're in the church, and the religious people are saying that the other religious people aren't religious enough for them. And then the homestead. And then you also have the forest, which I guess you could count, but I kind of think of it all as one big area. And then in The Lighthouse, you have the lighthouse. Now he's doing a film where there are multiple locations, multiple sets, more actors, more characters, and it fundamentally changed how he had to go about planning his film. A lot of that has to do with bringing on key creatives, which would be people like the cinematographer, whose name I know and can't remember, but it's listed here somewhere. First letter starts with a J. Last name starts with a B. It's like Yaren Blashk or something like that. I feel bad about that one. But bringing on your cinematographer early, bringing on your production designer early, and actually investing in those people a certain amount of creative control over the look of the film. Obviously, Eggers, as the director, would have final say on a lot of things, but when a production becomes large enough, you essentially have to just trust people to enact your vision, and the idea of micromanaging kind of just goes out the window because it's not efficient or effective. And I kind of like that as a story of Eggers' development. The fact that he has been able to do these two smaller films in the past, basically the only thing that increased for him from one to the other is that he had what were essentially character actors and not very well-known actors to having two powerhouses when it comes to acting, in Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, to now kind of leveling up to that next step of working on a much larger film set, larger budget, more dishes to balance and twirl in the air, as it were, juggling, more things to juggle. That's probably a better metaphor. And I just really want to see it. I really want to know if he's able to pull it off, and I have so much confidence in him that I feel like he will. He just will. There it is. Yaren Blashky. Saying that wrong, I'm sure I am, but it's all right. The guy's a really good DOP. So yeah, not really a lot to talk about here. I just thought that was kind of interesting how he kind of cops to that idea that this is a more complicated shoot, it's a bigger shoot, and that he kind of had to just let other people help him. It's a lesson that we could probably all take to heart a little bit when we're directing multi-million-dollar films. All right, Robert Eggers. I'll talk about you some other time in the future. This one made me laugh because, of course, Disney censored a PG movie to put it on Disney Plus. Ridiculous. It's ridiculous, guys. So Disney Plus edited Daryl Hannah's butt out of Splash with some of the worst CGI you're likely going to see. I've looked at the clip. To call it CGI, I think is even then is a little bit of a stretch, because it doesn't look like it more looks like someone just took an image and, like, in After Effects, just put it on the butt, like just was like boom on the butt, and then animated it to stay and like kind of move with her, but it doesn't look like anything. I mean, it does look like something. It looks weird. It looks weird as all hell. But I kind of like how Collider framed this at the very beginning, and it speaks, to something about American cinema, which we have all known and experienced and have seen, is that violence is cool. Nothing wrong with violence. You can have violence. Life is violent. We all know that. But sex? No. Anything that implies sex, you better get that the hell out of here. So Collider here, starting off by saying, you can watch a space terrorist get his head chopped off in Avengers Endgame. You can watch a space terrorist get his body cleaved in half in Star Wars The Last Jedi. And you can watch someone's mother horrifically gunned down in the traumatizing opening moments of Bambi. And then posing the question, are these moments family friendly? To which we have to say to ourselves, yeah, I guess, because they're on Disney Plus. And if Disney Plus doesn't want something to not, or if Disney Plus wants something to be family friendly, it will edit it or change it. As we now, Hanks falls in love with. He has multiple loves with her. It's a plural term. Now, I personally, and this is a big admission coming from me, an admission, I should say. I have not seen Splash. I don't know if you guys have seen Splash. Let me know in the comments or the chat if you have seen Splash, but I have not. I'm not a Splash stan. But there's a scene where Daryl Hannah, in the nude, but you only see from here up, it's kind of like she's live streaming, but it's in a film. She walks over to Tom Hanks, gives him a big old kiss, and then runs into the water. And as she's running away, her buttocks can be seen underneath her very, very long hair. I know. Scandal. Just scandalous imagery coming from Splash. So Disney decided that was just one partially obscured buttocks too many. One partially exposed buttocks too far. Disney could not allow it. They needed to be the saviors and the bastions of morality to keep the youth of America and Canada and other places where Disney Plus is available. They need to keep the youth pure and away from the evil thoughts that they would have in their mind about Daryl Hannah's partially covered butt. And so in doing that, they said, let's do the worst CGI ever. We got Dory saying that Splash was a classic 80s romantic comedy. I believe it. I just haven't seen it. Actually, a lot of Tom Hanks' early films, I think everything he did before Forrest Gump and Philadelphia, I have not seen. So, like, the Burbs and things like that. His entire early filmography is a giant black hole for me. Anyways, I think it's time for us to just take a look at this CGI, because it is wonderful. Let us all bask in the glory that is this CGI. You should be able to see it. I know this viewpoint's a tad obscured, but let's just go. Let's see what's up. We've got time. Oh, there's Daryl Hannah. She's gonna kiss him. Oh, there it is. The kiss has happened, and now she runs away. What is that on her butt? I don't know if that was a little. I don't know if that was a little pixelated for you guys. Let's see if we can get a nice still of whatever the hell this was. Okay, here you go. You can see it right here. Like, basically, here, down, here. It's just, like, straight lines that don't react to her movements in the slightest, except just stay right where it needs to in order to make sure that young children don't see a butt. And I can't press that button to make this go. Can I still do this? And then you see it. It's partially, I think, because this is like a low quality Twitter video that I'm showing you guys, that the pixels are so bad. But I can't imagine this looking better in high definition. I have to imagine that it would look much, much worse, because we'd be able to see just how bad of a job they did, and we wouldn't be able to give them any benefit of the doubt. So, I don't know, Disney. I don't know what kind of foolish game you're playing at here, because we know that you could have just put Splash on Hulu and not edited it at all. So why do this? Why, oh why would you do this? Got Dory saying that Burbs, starring Tom Hanks, is his favorite. I'm assuming you mean of the early Tom Hanks films, or is it your favorite movie ever, actually? Let me know. Clear that up for me. But that's one I gotta watch. It's one I gotta see. And now I will just say a quick cheers to Daryl Hannah's butt. Cheers. May you never be covered by what appears to be a malevolent fur creature again. Okay, and then Dory just saying that's his favorite 80s, it's his favorite 80s Tom Hanks film, is The Burbs. Cool. So now we go from the embarrassing to the amazing. We go from butts being covered to anticipating my butt being blown away by how amazing I hope a film is going to be. A few days ago, Vanity Fair shocked the world with production stills from the upcoming Denis Villeneuve adaptation of Dune. Frank Herbert's Dune, the giant sci-fi film that Denis Villeneuve got to make after his previous giant sci-fi film didn't do so great at the box office. And let me tell you, these photos have me so excited. So let's take a look. These are the first images that we're getting of Frank Herbert's Dune, directed by Denis Villeneuve. Here we see Ferguson is playing his mother, Lady Jessica. Here they are in a desert wearing their still suits. Incredible imagery here with the desert in the background. It does so much for this film to be able to shoot it in a physical location like this. Like it just looks wonderful. And I'm gonna get a book. Wine tongue. I'm gonna get a bit more into the look as we go through, as we get to more scenes that were lit artificially. Obviously, this would have been lit artificially as well, but it's outdoors, so it's not as fun to talk about. And here we have Zendaya playing Shiri. Chani. Whew. I am out of the Dune fan club for that one. Wearing another version of the still suit. Looks a bit different from what these guys are wearing. Yeah, maybe there's some customization going on here. Maybe Shani's going for more of a punk look. I don't know. But you see the blue eyes, the very important blue eyes of Dune, Arrakis, as the planet is known to people who don't live on Dune. Actually, no, they call it Arrakis there. And then here we get an ad that we're just going to scroll by. Now, here's a good one. Here's where you see a lot of the cast together. And I'm not going to be able to name everybody. But right here, you've got Timothée Chalamet doing his best impression of someone who's tough. And he kind of pulls it off. And I think he's honestly perfect for this role. Because Paul Atreides in the book, as far as I can remember, is a young kid, 16, 17, maybe 18. And Timothée Chalamet, while being a bit older, can play that age really well. But he also has a kind of physical presence that he can bring to a role like this. So even though he is somewhat smaller in stature to, say, Jason Momoa or Josh Brolin, he's still able to bring a bit of a physical presence and also an intensity that works really well for the character of Paul. So wonderful choice in casting. And then here in the middle, we get our very first look at Oscar Isaac as Duke Leto Atreides. There's going to be a photo of him in the future that you're going to have to get ready for because he's looking good. And we have Lady Jessica, Rebecca Ferguson standing behind him. We have Josh Brolin. I forget the role that Josh Brolin is playing. Oh, he's playing Gurney Halleck. Right on. And then front and center, well, front and a little off center, is Jason Momoa for the first time in decades, perhaps, without facial hair. I can't actually remember him in a film where he did not have facial hair. And he is playing the character of Duncan Idaho. And he's looking pretty spiffy, I have to say. There's a few more photos in this set that feature Mr. Momoa. And they look pretty good. And then here we got the Canadian darling of Denis Villeneuve wearing camo pants for some reason. And Javier Bardem. And yes, this is the exact moment when you start to realize that the cast for this film is stacked beyond anything that you could have possibly imagined. Ridiculous, the cast that they got for this film. But yeah, Javier Bardem is there. He's in a still suit. They don't say who he's playing, but I mean, he's obviously playing one of the Fremen. I just can't remember which one. Did they say? So I'll keep an eye for his name. Okay, now we get some dope ass shit. We've got Josh Brolin in what I can only assume is the Atreides armor, the very specific armor that people from House Atreides wear, looks real great. I'm a fan of this. He looks like a badass motherfucker who's going to beat the shit out of people. And then in the very middle, we have Rebecca Ferguson as a Sith Lord. Just kidding, she's still Lady Jessica Atreides. And then on the right, we have the image that launched a million lady boners and probably a few male boners. Oscar Isaac as Duke Leto Atreides. Just look at the way that he's looking at you right now and looking at me. Look at this. Look at his beard. Look at his hair. Look at the salt and pepperish kind of stuff going on here. Like, good God. That is, like, edit out this little boom pole or whatever this is. Maybe that's part of the scenery. I don't know. You could put that in a poster, and people, when they go back to university, will be buying that as part of the poster sale and just masturbating to it in their dorm room. Like, that is a look that would launch 1,000 ships. That's Helen of Troy type shit, but for rugged-looking dudes. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. I hope my girlfriend is watching right now and agreeing with all of the things that I am saying about how handsome he looks right now. And here we've got Jason Momoa. I still think he looks better with the facial hair, all things considered, but now he's fighting. Now he's doing Jason Momoa things. And once again, real big fan of how he looks. And then we get, what is the name of this actress? Sarah Duncan Brewster playing Liet Kynes. And this role was initially played by a man in David Lynch's Dune and is male in the initial book, but never really a role that required one gender or another. And so they just got a really good, I assume, actress to go with it. Because honestly, with the cast that they have, you know that they got every single person that they wanted to get. Like, no one here is a B part. I mean, obviously there's smaller parts than others, but they got everyone that they wanted. No doubt in my mind. And that's the end of that. So I did want to do a couple of things just talking about the look of the film, particularly the lighting. And something that kind of stood out to me when looking at the image of all of these people standing together is that we're getting a lot of kind of soft, diffused lighting from these two light banks here. And then obviously there's a kind of key light from the front that's going forward and illuminating the front and their faces and all that. But this kind of image really reminded me of some of the things that that Roger Deakins was doing in Blade Runner 2049. A lot of, like, these lights are not neon, but he used a lot of diffused lighting in interior spaces in order to just kind of like let light emanate out while still able to control where the darkness was and creating like high contrast, visually arresting images. And this image here, when I looked at it, it made me pause and think, wait, is Deakins doing this film? And he is not. For any of you like me who thought that Deakins might be doing it, I must apologize to you. That is in fact not the case. The cinematographer is, let me scroll back up here, he doesn't have a photo here. It's Gregg Frazier. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Gregg Frazier's work, let me be the ones to tell you that he's done some good stuff. Specifically, I'm talking about Killing Them Slowly, Let Me In, the remake of Let the Right One In, not that other one. Also did Zero Dark 30 with Catherine Bigelow. And I think the big one here that I really wanted to point to, well, two of them actually, was Foxcatcher, which looks real good. That cinematography is nice in that. The lighting, real awesome. And then we also have Rogue One. So we know the guy can do sci-fi action type stuff. And I personally enjoyed the look of Rogue One. I enjoy Rogue One in general. But cinematography, especially some of those early scenes when Ben Mendelsohn comes for Mads Mikkelsen's character on that first planet, guy can do expansive scenery shots as good as anyone else. I mean, maybe not as good as Deakins, but he can do them fairly well. So I am completely okay with him doing this. Obviously, we would all prefer Deakins to be doing this film, but he is not, and I think that Mr. Frazier, who will do a wonderful job. Actually, the film is in post-production, so he's already done, hopefully, a wonderful job. He also did 3 episodes of The Mandalorian, so take from that what you will. Which 3 episodes? I don't know. It doesn't say here. But guy's doing good sci-fi work all around. So now we're going to get to the film, or to the little bit of news that I put in the thumbnail for this, in the title. There's other things that we're going to be talking about after this, so please stick around. This is by no means the end of the live stream. But I can now report to you fully that the Cannes Film Festival has admitted that they will not be having the festival this summer. Something that we have all long expected. The fact that the festival typically takes place in May seemed impossible. They were to announce their film slate today, I think, usually. It's usually the mid-April that they announce the films that are actually going to be showing. That has been delayed. And now Cannes has released a letter saying that we simply just can't go ahead with the festival in the summer. Now, it says here specifically in this Vulture article, and this was, I think, a direct quote, so I'll just read it. We acknowledge that the postponement of the 73rd International Cannes Film Festival, initially considered for the end of June to the beginning of July, is no longer an option. What they don't say is what is still an option, and I think this is actually pretty interesting and warrants some discussion. There's a couple of things that the Cannes International Film Festival has to consider when they're making their plans and when they're going forward. Something that they don't have to consider at all is the rest of the film. Well, I mean, they do and they don't. There are a number of festivals in between Cannes and Venice that, while important to the local film culture of a lot of cities, from an international standpoint as far as awards and acclaim and what have you, are just not on the same level as the big 4 festivals, big 5 festivals that happen between Cannes and then Venice, TIFF, Telluride, and the New York Film Festival in September, October. So what Cannes, I think, is most concerned with right now is making sure that they can happen before Venice. Venice typically is the last week of August, and maybe they go a little bit into September, but they are done before Telluride happens, and then TIFF happens in the second week of September, typically. So Cannes has to want to go before Venice, because a lot of their films are going to be world premieres. In fact, I think for films to screen in competition, they have to be world premieres. And they likely don't want to have to try to convince filmmakers that having their films premiere at Cannes in, say, October, after the New York Film Festival, they don't want to have to say to people, yeah, you want to premiere at Cannes and win the Palme d'Or, because that's a great way for you to start your festival run or whatever. They don't want to make that argument, because other filmmakers will look at Venice, at TIFF, at Telluride, and say, well, I might miss Cannes, I might miss out on the Palme d'Or, but odds are I probably wasn't going to win it anyways, and in this case, if I can launch at Venice and play at either Telluride or TIFF, I have a very good platform for launching my film into award season and getting some good press coverage for it. So I would have to imagine that Cannes wants to avoid that at all costs. And in order for them to run a slate of films that they, or in order for them to run the slate of films that they were going to run when the festival was supposed to take place in May, they would still have to go before Venice. And so because this article is saying that they're no longer looking at June, they're no longer looking at the beginning of July, I have to believe that they're now looking at the end of July and early August. If they can't get that specific time period, I don't know what they're going to do. Because at that point, I have to wonder if they either postpone the festival or do a very stripped down version of the festival in October. Their competition, I think, could still be populated with enough films, because enough people will want to have a shot at the Palme d'Or and just to be able to say that they were part of the official selection at Cannes. The other possibility for Cannes is to say that they are going to lift whatever kind of restrictions they have on films premiering at the festival that are not world premieres. It'll be a switch for them. It'll be a much different thing for them to do. But if by doing that they're able to get some of those larger films that have the cast and directors that they love getting on the red carpet, maybe that's something that they end up doing. Now, though, we at least know that Cannes is not going to be anywhere near close by. We're still months and months away from it. And it's going to be very interesting to see what they actually end up finally settling on. My assumption is that every major film festival that I just talked about or mentioned is going to be happening maybe digitally or not at all. I really don't think that people are going to want to go to theaters in September, regardless of world premieres and which stars are going to be showing up. The world has changed, and it's going to take us a long time to get over this trauma that we've all gone through. So I don't really see any of those festivals going forward as traditional sit down at the movies and watch a movie type festivals. They may go forward in some kind of digital ways, as South by Southwest teamed up with Amazon, which I haven't heard anything about, and I have to actually ask myself, is that actually going to happen? Don't know. In that same way, TIFF could easily partner with Netflix to do something similar to that. Venice in the past has not been very kind to streaming services and films from streaming services, so that may not be an option for them. Telluride, I have no idea what they would do. As good as a festival it is a very small, very short festival. So I don't know if they would have the kind of power to do that kind of digital festival that South by or TIFF would be able to do. But we'll just have to wait and see. It's just information that we don't have. But I think what is happening with Amazon and South by Southwest? Because I literally have not heard anything about this. I check every few days, do a Google search for Amazon and South by Southwest to see if anything has been announced as to the films that are coming out, when it's actually going to be happening. Because the initial press release just said the end of April, or sometime in April, or for 10 days in April. And it's the 17th. There are 13 days left in April. We should have heard something about this already. So I'm wondering if they just had a really tough time getting directors to sign on to this, to actually have their films premiere as part of this initiative. And I just don't think that it's gonna happen. Or if it is, it's going to be happening in May, or it's gonna bleed from April into May. But they would want to promote it, I would assume, more than just a couple of days if they were going to start it on, say, the 20th. But we shall see. I'll keep an eye out for it. And if it does happen, then we can talk about it. Absolutely. So that's all the film news. That took longer than I expected to get through, to be perfectly honest with you. But I'm staying with you till the end, and I'm going to do all the things that I planned on doing. You can see it. There's a lot of different tabs open on my screen right now. We still got ways to go. So something that came up that I want to take a look at, but I haven't yet, and I figured this would be a good time to share with you guys, to get all of our reactions to something, and that is the trailer that just came out for Capone. I didn't know that this film was happening, but it features Tom Hardy and Matt Dillon, and it is all about the aforementionedly named gangster, Al Capone. So I thought we would just watch the trailer together and talk about it a little bit. So I am going to get this guy big. Huzzah. And I'm also going to cut... Oh, God, it's my audio. Alright, so I'm going to back that up a little bit. I'm going to cut my mic audio while we're watching this, but you can still see my face. I promise. And you will be able to...
How about it for our good friend Al, ladies and gentlemen?
Do you know what the difference is between Adolf Hitler?
Sorry, everyone. I was just looking at OBS and I realized that the video wasn't playing at all. And I feel like YouTube might have done some tomfoolery on me where it doesn't allow, or maybe YouTube doesn't allow full screen things to show in that way. Also, everything's just going kind of slow. I don't know if I'm dropping frames or not. I don't think I am. Oh, I definitely dropped some frames while I was trying to show this. And it's really not reacting to this anymore. Let's see if I can just change that out. Uh-oh. I think it broke. One moment, everyone. See if I can get this thing to kind of reset itself a bit. And that one. Okay. All right, let's do a little bit of movement here if we can. All right, so maybe we just watch it in small screen right here. Maybe that's the way we got to do it. Let's try that out. Let's see if that works.
Hitler now Capone.
Yeah. Okay. So that's how we're gonna have to do it. Let's back this up. I once again will cut my mic audio, and I'll talk to you guys in a minute.
How about it for our good friend Al, ladies and gentlemen?
Do you know what the difference is between Adolf Hitler and Al Capone? Hitler's dead. Capone lives like a king in Florida.
He has full-blown dementia.
I have reason to believe it could all be an elaborate act.
What's this about?
We have information that your client may have tucked away a very large sum of money.
I can drop the act now.
You got goons walking around.
Guys like you own this place $10 million. Maybe I can get him to talk.
He's gonna go on a rampage. We made a promise. Someday we was gonna make it big.
The only thing that really matters is how a man treats his family.
Let me give you some advice. The process of doing your
All right, so that was the trailer for Capone. Kyle MacLachlan is in that movie. Therefore, I'm going to watch it. That's all that really needs to be said. We have Usgay in the chat just letting us know that everything sounded all right, and that she thinks that the makeup doesn't look great, but I think that she'll give it a watch anyways. Are you talking about the makeup on Capone, the kind of the sores and the calluses and all the things? Dory also saying that Capone didn't look good. Okay, yeah, I thought it was functional at least. Like I understood that he was sick, that he was old, that he had probably imbibed in the wine a little bit too much throughout his life. And okay, I was gonna saying that. That it looked fake for the most part. And Dory said the trailer was not appealing. My goodness, I think we might have disagreements here, everyone. I think I am just predisposed to liking all trailers. Maybe that's why I started doing trailer reactions on this channel. But yeah, it's a part of Capone's life that I'm not familiar with. This whole treasure hunt that it looks like it's going to involve at the end of Capone's life, and the fact that he might be faking dementia. Just a whole lot of things about Al Capone that I was not aware of. And that kind of gets me interested a little bit. You know what we should do? Before we totally write this off, or before you guys totally write this off, let's take a look at who's actually making it. Because that could perhaps sway us one way or another. So this was Josh Trank directed it. Why do I know that name? What has he done? Oh. Oh. He directed Fantastic Four. Yeah. Oh, that's not good. But he also directed Chronicle, which was a good movie. Oh no. Okay, I think Dory's kind of hit on this one already. No way, Fanstick. Oh god, yeah, that movie is just universally considered one of the poorest films ever made. Although, according to Josh Trank, all of the issues with it are due to studio interference and are not his fault. Uzgai also said, the trailer looked fun, but it doesn't look like a great movie so far. Maybe they'll do a better job editing it before release. Always a possibility. But now that we know that it is the film that Hollywood finally said, okay, you can direct now, even though you directed one of the worst films ever with this movie right here. Oh, it's kind of out of frame. You guys can't see it. Bring that poster up. Yeah. Yeah. Woo. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that poster. From the director of Capone. Fantastic Four. Oh dear me. Alright. I'm less enthused about Capone now. But, I mean, Tom Hardy, I feel like he's got good taste in films to be in. Maybe not though. Maybe not. Okay, we can keep debating Capone, but it is still a film that we have not seen. The story beats looked interesting to me. I'm just worried because the director is doesn't have the best track record to speak of. Now I'm going to move on to something. It's technically news, and it's not news that I tend to talk about in these wrap-ups. Obviously, people die. It happens a lot, and a lot of the news that really tends to rise to the surface as far as film news is when a beloved actor or cinematographer or director, when they pass, that tends to draw the clicks. And for the most part, up until right now, I have avoided talking about the passing of particular people in the film industry, because I always felt like that, for one, was just be a weekly staple of these wrap-ups, and I don't really want to dwell on the passing of others that much. I'm more interested in the happenings going on in the film industry and distribution, etc. But in this particular case, I felt like I kind of just had to talk about this. And it's for blah 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 blah. The wine tongue and struck again. It's for a completely personal reason. But first, let's just talk about it. Brian Dennehy, noted character actor. According to this Deadline article, he has been on the blacklist. But Brian Dennehy has passed away. If we just read through this, he is a 6-time Emmy-nominated actor. He's been on the blacklist. He was 81 years old when he passed. Let's just bring up his filmography so we can get kind of an idea of what he's done over his career. But his career is kind of incredible. He's a noted character actor, so even if you don't know Brian Dennehy, you know Brian Dennehy. You've seen him in a film before. So there he is. 2009, Brian Dennehy as a somewhat older man. We can just get a look at his larger roles up here. First Blood in 1982, Gorky Park in 83, Silverado 85, Cocoon in 85, Presumed Innocent, the Romeo and Juliet film by Baz Luhrmann in 96, Knight of Cups in 2015, and he won a Golden Globe Award for Best Actor in a Miniseries or Television Film for the role of Willie Loman of Death of a Salesman in 2000. Now, the reason that I'm talking about Brian Dennehy is his relationship with the Stratford Festival in Canada. So you can see right here, it says right off the bat, I wasn't even expecting them to talk about this. He also regularly played Canada's Stratford Festival, especially in works by William Shakespeare and Samuel Beckett. I have seen Brian Dennehy perform live at Stratford twice. I hope I'm not getting these plays mixed up, but one of them, he played King Lear, I believe, and I saw him in that production. But the one that sticks out to me the most is that he did a presentation of the Letters of Oscar Wilde as a one-man show. And he really wasn't playing a role. I think he just came out on stage and said, "Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Dennehy." Or maybe he didn't actually address himself. But he wasn't playing a role. He wasn't playing a character. He was just providing narrative and context to the Letters of Oscar Wilde and then reading the Letters of Oscar Wilde. And it was incredible. It was a way of connecting with the works of Oscar Wilde that I had never really experienced before. Whether you read his books or watch the adaptations or what have you, being given a glimpse into the personal life of Oscar Wilde and have that be narrated by Brian Dennehy was a special experience. I think it was one of those things, and if you've ever been to the Stratford Festival or are familiar with their programming, it's something that they always tend to have. They have a production or two where you look at it on the surface and you're like, I don't really know. That sounds kind of interesting, but is it going to be good? And then when you go check it out, it's one of the best things at the festival that year. I've had the pleasure of seeing a couple of those. Usually I tend to stick to like a one Shakespeare, one something else kind of experience when I go to the Stratford Festival. And some of the cool stuff I've seen at Stratford is incredible. I saw my very first year when I was 12 years old. This is way off topic. I saw Dracula done as a musical. Parents desperately wanted to get some culture into me. They were like, "We're going to the Stratford Festival," and I was like, "Oh, plays? That's so dumb." And they were like, "But we'll let you pick one, and we'll go to it no matter what." So I was intrigued. I was like, "Okay, Mom and Dad, maybe I will pick one." And then I looked through everything that was playing that year. I was 12, so this would have been 1997, 1996, around there. And I saw Dracula, and I didn't care that it was a musical. I was just like, yo, let's go see Dracula. And that was awesome. That was so cool. There was one other. Oh God, what was it? There was some kind of farce playing in the experimental theater that they have at Stratford. I forget the name of it now, but it was a somewhat. It was a show that had participation involved in it as well, and it was hilarious. There was actually a moment where one of the actors was walking on stage, and just to frame this a little bit better. The actors never knew which parts they were going to be playing when the productions start, like when every performance started, because it literally starts with them like having the scripts for the show on the floor of the stage, and then they just kind of like randomly picked a few, and they were like, "Oh, I'm reading this person today," and then they would go off and do the show. And so at one point, an actor was walking up the steps. I had an aisle seat, and he got to me, and he was reading his lines. And then when he got to me, he leaned over, looked at me, and was like, "Oh, what is this? Sorry, what does this say?" And then so I had to look at it, and then I just, using my somewhat deep voice, I projected a little bit. I think I might have been like 15 or 16 when this happened, and I just said the line as loud as I could, and everybody heard it because everyone was laughing. I don't know if they were laughing at the fact that I was quiet and meek, but I don't think that's true. I think my voice kind of reverberated throughout the theater, and that was amazing. So yeah, that was also one of those ones that was very like, what the hell is this? But then it turned out to be super great. And then it was Brian Dennehy reading the Letters of Oscar Wilde. And I don't know if I'd ever seen a one-person show before. And the fact that it wasn't really even a one-person show, it was it was even hard to even describe it as theater, but there was definitely a theatricality to it. And I credit the entire thing to Brian Dennehy's interpretation of the work of the letters of Oscar Wilde. And it was one of the more striking but subdued things that I had ever seen someone do. And what was really strange, and this, I think it would have happened in maybe a different year, seeing him play King Lear, it was a different experience altogether because he was one of a number of. Oh, you know what? I don't think it was King Lear now. He was playing. It was definitely Shakespeare. He was definitely playing a king character, but he wasn't the lead in it. He wasn't the named character. He just happened to be the king or the main monarch in it. Or sorry, the main monarch. Yeah, the main monarch. And it was weird because the character was subdued and in a chair a lot and didn't really get to do much. But seeing him read the works of Oscar Wilde, and Dory just kind of hits this one on the head while saying, Oscar Wilde One Man Show sounds amazing. Yeah, it was. And because that was such, I don't even want to call it important because, theater to me is a great thing, but it's not something that's integral to my life. But his interpretation, that show, has always stayed with me. And I wanted to highlight this man because he did a lot of good work. He appeared in tons and tons and tons of films. It won't even do it here. Just to illustrate, I think he has like over 200 screen credits on IMDb. Come on now. Brian Dennehy. Let's check it out. Apologies for the vocal fry if I'm getting into that. It starts to happen after an hour or so. So yeah, acting credits, 183. He has 3 films that haven't even been released yet. And it's wild. Both TV and film. He has done so much. And I'm not going to be able to go through all of these individually, but it's a career that perhaps doesn't have the pedigree behind it that other people do. But he was an everyday working actor who, when given the opportunity, was able to shine. And it's not something that I will forget, and I just wanted to say to Brian Dennehy, thank you so much. You were great. And in everything that I've seen you in, I've enjoyed you. So, with that said, let us now move on to a little section that I think is going to become a mainstay of these these weekly wrap-ups, where I talk about things that we can watch when we're stuck inside. And I'm going to try to limit this to cool things, different things, strange things, things that are not just whatever happens to be popping up on Netflix every single week as they add new films all the time. The first of these is that Lionsgate is starting a live stream thing with 4 of their classic movies. And it's actually starting tonight, believe it or not. So, Lionsgate on YouTube, on their official Lionsgate YouTube page, as well as the Fandango Movie Clips page, I believe, they're going to be doing live streams of full feature films that you can presumably get in the chat for. I don't know how much they're going to be, how long that's going to last, because people will start saying some racist shit, I'm sure. But yeah, every Friday night, you're just going to be able to hang out. I think Jamie Lee Curtis is hosting it. It's being called Lionsgate Live, A Night at the Movies, and it will be live streamed. Yeah. So tonight, you're going to be able to watch The Hunger Games. Next week will be Dirty Dancing. The week after will be La La Land. And the week after that will be John Wick, the first one. But if you are not 18 years of age or older, or you're unable to create a Google account that that you've changed or modified the date of birth for, you won't be able to watch it. So, yeah, an interesting way to get people to come together and have one of these kinds of viewing parties that we're seeing pop up more and more. Obviously, the Netflix Chrome extension that allows you to do this has become quite popular. Twitch is now allowing people to do live viewings of certain films on Twitch, live viewing parties. And now Lionsgate has said to themselves, hey, let's do that too. I think that the choice of the films here is a little all over the place. It's a little random. I imagine that they said, like, okay, we got to have a blockbuster, we've got to have a classic, we've got to have a prestige film, and we have to have an action film, and then they just did this. Hunger Games I definitely find to be an interesting pick, because we're essentially talking about a story where the rich don't give a shit about the poor, and the poor are forced to fight and kill each other. Perhaps the parallels between what we're going through right now and that film are a little apparent, but yeah. Aside from that, you get a couple of good pictures here. John Wick, I think, is actually interesting that they're putting it in here at all. So let me know if you guys are going to be watching any of these, and which ones you're excited for, if at all. Also have to point to Dory, who in the chat is talking about every other thing that is happening right now. I talked about the AFI Movie Club a couple of weeks ago. I haven't been keeping up with it, but good on AFI for doing that and for having those new films on there, I think almost every day. It's a pretty impressive feat that they're doing. Also, this is true. This will apply mostly to Canadian and American viewers. Turner Classic Movies is doing their film festival as a stay-at-home festival, so they're airing the films on television, and I believe there's other things going on with it outside of it, like tweet-alongs and ancillary material available to people. So good for them. I know Alicia Malone is doing something with it. I follow her on Instagram, and she posted something about it. So as a TCM personality, she's all over that kind of stuff. And then also Dory here is talking about the CBS Sunday Night Film. Yeah, CBS is now airing films on Sunday nights again. I think largely because they know they're not going to have... Oh, no, wait. Sunday Night Football's on ESPN. In any case, they want people to be able to sit together and watch movies again. They're going to be showing films like the first and third Indiana Jones film, a whole bunch more. But yeah, those are other examples of companies saying to themselves, we want people to watch movies together. How can we do that when we're all staying in our homes? Next on this little list, and I'm glad to say that every other tab I have are things that Dory has not just put in the chat, so I'm hitting you with some sneaky ones. Oh, before I just talk about this more, Dory's also saying the TCM Film Festival got famous people commenting on the films between movies. That's cool. That's awesome. I love seeing that kind of stuff. I also love seeing this kind of stuff. That Netflix is putting a bunch of their documentaries for free on their YouTube channel, and the spin that they're putting on it is that they're putting it there to help teachers. If you are teaching a certain subject, whether it be the 13th Amendment, because I know one of the films that they put up there is 13th. Also, kind of a Planet Earth-like documentary that they have called Our Planet. A bunch of other stuff. They just made it available for free on their YouTube page. And this, they're saying, is to help teachers, to help them with their virtual classes and things like this. Naturally, those materials are available to all of us. So if you don't have Netflix, or you just for some reason prefer to watch these kinds of things on YouTube, you now have that option. And once again, I've been kind of praising Netflix quite a bit over these last few weeks as to how they've handled the pandemic and the current situation. This is just another example of them doing a good thing. They absolutely did not have to do this. They could have just said, you know what? The barrier to entry for our platform is small, and you probably already have it. So we're just going to point you at these documentaries and say, yo, go watch these documentaries. But instead, they're like, hey, guess what? We realize that a lot of people are going through hardships right now. Not many people, or there are going to be people out there who the $12.99 a month, the $15.99 a month, whatever it is, that's going to be too much for people right now because we're all trying to save and cut costs. So we're just going to make this available for people so it can be used as a teaching material. Wonderful. Good for them. Love that they did that. Next, we have one that you cannot watch right now, but when I saw the article, I just knew I had to spotlight it. There is a movie called Blood Machines. It was directed by Seth Eckerman, and it features the music of the synthwave / metal-ish kind of band Carpenter Brute. And I saw this movie at Toronto After Dark last year in October. It was visually incredible. Some of the best practical effects ever. Amazing design. And overall, like, not a 5-star movie, but 5-star effort. Loved everything that went into it. It's only like 53 minutes long, I think, as well. Like, barely qualifying as a feature-length film. But I'm glad to say that it will be coming to Shudder in May. So if you subscribe to Shudder, you'll have this to watch if you haven't seen it already. If you don't have Shudder, I would recommend getting the free trial for like 7 days or 30 days or 3 months. Actually, I think they changed it because of COVID. They changed the initial period of freeness to a lot. I think it used to be 7 days. Maybe now it's a month. And I would say just watch this film. As an example of what is possible outside of, say, the Hollywood studio system as far as artistic vision goes, it's outstanding. The music's good. It's not as prevalent or as, I don't know. This is definitely Carpenter Brute doing Carpenter Brute music, but it's almost like they decided to do a film score for the film as opposed to making the music and making Carpenter Brute music and then having the film fit the music. It feels like they scored this as opposed to the film being made to their music. And so it's not like peak Carpenter Brute music. It's not some of the best shit they've ever done. And it does really feel like a film score. Still really good, but you really are going into this for the visuals. If you want an example of what Seth Eckerman and Carpenter Brute can do, you can check out their music video on YouTube right now for Turbo Killer. You get a pretty good idea of the visual style, although when you compare the two, Blood Machines is so much more visually. Also, there's some interesting thematic stuff that happens in Blood Machines, but just something to watch out for, something that's really cool, and I recommend checking it out if you can. Last, as far as cool things to watch, this is something that I found thanks to r/movies, which I have to say, props to r/movies for finally providing me something of sustenance or of actual substance, because mostly that subreddit is not great and I'm not a big fan of it. But when I saw this post come up, I knew that I had to let everyone know about it and sing its praises to the heavens. This is the page for a selection of films that a Brooklyn-based art collective known as Ex Militia put together. They apparently did some kind of film screening, or they had these films available beforehand and they've just got the rights back to them to put them back up on the site. This is the first I've heard of them doing this, and once again, Reddit told me about this stuff. It's 4 dystopian science fiction films that were made in Eastern Europe before the fall of the Soviet Republic. And the one that was really highlighted in the Reddit post was this first one, On the Silver Globe, directed by Andrzej Zawalski. I believe it's a Polish film. And this is a hard film to find. And once again, according to the Reddit post, it's a very hard film to find in high definition. And you get both of those things here. And I can actually just click play on this because I believe it's the first one in the player. It is a little under 3 hours long, but visually looks pretty cool. And it's supposed to be one of the all-time great science fiction films. It's just very rarely seen in any kind of good condition. Oh, is that nudity that's blurred out? Did they blur out that guy's dick? For shame. Who blurred out that man's penis? Oh, that looks cool. Yeah, that looks real nice. I don't even know what's going on there, but I like the look of that. You guys are seeing that a bit, right? This dude's like face and this dude's face. And I don't know what's going on back here. Ooh, there's another dude's face. There's a lot of faces here. But yeah, they also have 3 other films available here that you can check out. I only really know Stalker by reputation, the Andrei Tarkovsky film. But you also have Obi Oba, The End of Civilization by Peter Zulskin from 1985. And Letters from a Dead Man by Konstantin... Oof, that's going to take me a second. Lupushenki. Konstantin Lupushenki from 1986. So I don't know anything about these films aside from Stalker, but this is a really great little collection of films. I really love the poster work that's done for all of these. I'm fairly certain it's different artists, but like if they weren't so terrifying and unsettling, I would put them in my apartment. Definitely. So I should actually probably, maybe I'll just copy and paste and put this link in the chat right now just so you guys can get it easily. And then I'll also put it in the description for anyone who happens to make it an hour and a half into this live stream and sees his recommendation when the video goes back up on YouTube after the stream is done. So that's another example of something that's available to you as we're in this little lockdown of ours, pandemic of ours. So now, let's just talk about the movies that we saw, guys. Let me know in the chat. Let me know who's here. Let me know who's still hanging out. What movies have you seen? These are the films that I have watched recently. I talked about Battle Beyond the Stars, Crimson Kimono, and Blind Alley last week. This week, I watched Devil Wears Prada, What's Up Doc, and The Servant. Dory is saying that he saw 19 films last week. Holy shit, man. That's amazing. Oh, and Ozga coming in and saying that she also saw Devil Wears Prada. Weird. Where did you see Devil Wears Prada? I wonder. Dory is saying his favorite scene in Devil Wears Prada was the Vogue Madonna montage. It was a lawn take with chic outfit changes done. Ooh, I don't know if I even remember that. Ozga, since you also recently saw Devil Wears Prada, do you remember what scene Dory is talking about? Oh, and now she wants to know where I saw Devil Wears Prada. Well, I don't mind telling you guys, I saw it at her apartment. I was sitting on her couch, watching Devil Wears Prada with her. Yeah. Oh, now I was going to say that she totally agrees with Dory. Dope. So you guys in the chat, you just keep talking about Devil Wears Prada. Also, Dory, let me know what were your favorite few films from the last week, or just things that stood out from you amongst those 19 films, because I'd love to talk about those a bit. But I do want to talk about What's Up Doc and The Servant, which I saw in this previous week. What's Up Doc was a Peter Bogdanovich film. Well, it is a Peter Bogdanovich film. Talked about him a little bit last week because I believe Dory was thinking about seeing Paper Planes, another Bogdanovich film, which also features Ryan O'Neal. Wait, I think it's Ryan O'Neal. It might not be Ryan O'Neal. But What's Up Doc does feature Ryan O'Neal, as well as Barbra Streisand. And this film, I don't know if you can tell by the name or not, it features Barbra Streisand essentially playing the role of Bugs Bunny. But a sexual, I mean, Bugs Bunny's already sexually charged. She is a woman who's kind of like Bugs Bunny, who wants Ryan O'Neal, and she's gonna get him. This film is essentially it's not a send-up, it's more of a love letter to screwball comedies from the 30s and 40s. Lots of very fast dialogue, a lot of ridiculous situations, an excellent car chase scene at the end. And it's really the first thing that I've really sat down that featured Barbra Streisand. It's one of the first Barbra Streisand films I sat down and just allowed myself to enjoy. I think because when I was growing up and I always associated Barbra Streisand with Celine Dion, and my parents liked Celine Dion, therefore I wasn't allowed to like Celine Dion. Because of that kind of thing, I always just never liked Barbra Streisand for really no reason. And I really liked her in this film. I think she did a great job in this movie. She had a lot of very funny lines, and I would recommend it to anybody. I'm also starting to get this feeling that Peter Bogdanovich might be a really good director. Just kidding, I already knew that. But the more of his films that I see, the more I'm just impressed. The more I'm just impressed by him on the whole. So now we got more people talking about Devil Wears Prada. I was going to say that, any scene with Emily Blunt making faces at Anne Hathaway was great. Agreed. And Dory's saying the guy from the TV show The Mentalist was too creepy in the movie. I also agree with that. What's his name? Simon Baker, I think? Oh, and I was getting his eyebrows. You're right. Weird eyebrows, guys. I don't know who was the eyebrow stylist for Simon Baker on that film. They could have done a bit of a better job, I think, though. All right, so we got Dory putting his list up. I ranked the films I watched last week from best to worst. So let's just read through them. Best Years of Our Lives, Women in the Dunes, Rosemary's Baby, Never Look Away, Son of Saul, the Cassie trilogy, Gilda, Moonrise Kingdom, Sounder, So Long My Son, Easter Parade, The Sandlot, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, The Flu, Sans Soleil, and A Hard Day's Light. Dory, I gotta say, it breaks my heart to see Sans Soleil so low on that list. For me personally, it's my favorite documentary ever. Just number one. One of my... and I also think it happens to be one of the best films in existence. I don't know where on my list of best films ever I would put it, but it's up there. Love the shit out of that movie. I also know last week that you mentioned that just because something is low on your list doesn't mean you think it's a bad film. It could just be not as great as some of the other ones. There was one that I wanted to point out in your list, Son of Saul. That is a movie. It's kind of a reminder that even in a genre or a style or a film that focuses on a period of history that's been done to death, there's still room for experimentation and for finding a new effective way of presenting things. Son of Saul is a Holocaust film. It follows one man, literally. The camera is basically behind him almost the entire time, and he is a Jewish captive in a concentration camp. And I think collaborator is a bit too strong of a word, but he's one of the people who decided to work with the Nazis inside the concentration camp. Not to say that he has a particularly good time, but he's put to work. He's put to hard labor, essentially, inside the concentration camp. And the camera is almost always positioned maybe 10 feet back from him. And the way that the film is shot, it keeps him in the center of the frame as he's walking away from the camera, and the camera's following him. You don't really see his face that often. But the way that the camera I think it's the depth of focus that they use. They have him in the middle, and you see things in the periphery, in the sides of the image, but nothing is ever really focused on. And I think they're trying to visually depict the kind of, not mental gymnastics, but when you are experiencing a traumatic event, I think it speaks to what happens to you mentally that allows you to block out that trauma or those traumatic images. So you always see things kind of happening on the outskirts of the image. The terrible things that you associate with concentration camps. They're all there. They're all present. And they're always just kind of off to the side. So as a way of melding the mental anguish and also just the mental state of a character with visual representation of their surroundings, it's probably one of the strongest films I've seen that can do that, that has done that. It was almost, I don't know if you would say that it was expressionistic in that way, because it did feel like they were going for more of a documentary feel, but it was just incredible for that. And it's one of those films that, like, I will sing its praises all the way to the heavens, but I don't know if I would ever watch it a second time, because it is a difficult film. It is a Holocaust film. It's a brutal Holocaust film. And so when Dory says that it reminded him of Schindler's List, but on steroids, yeah. Think of all the worst parts of Schindler's List, and then that's the entire movie, and it's someone walking through them, essentially taking you around, not taking you on a tour. It's not as formal as that, but that's kind of what ends up happening, is that you're seeing all different kinds of atrocities in the film. And Dory also saying that Son of Saul wrecked him. Yeah, it'll fuck you up emotionally, for sure. And I was gonna say that she can't watch it. That's too bad. It is very good. Luckily, the director has put out another film that is not about the Holocaust that is also good. It's not as good, but it has a lot of the same stylistic elements to it. I feel like they are not as... They don't serve either the mental, what the characters are thinking, or what the story is doing. It becomes clear when you watch the director's second film, that even though the framing and filming style of Son of Saul works so well in helping you understand what was going on in the mind of the character, it becomes clear with the second film that was kind of just the way that the director likes to shoot. And so a lot of those same techniques are used in his second film, which I can't remember the name of. Maybe I'll just check that out real quick. Son of Saul. Hungarian film? Yeah, he's a Hungarian director, I believe. Hey. Yes, Laszlo Nemes, who also directed Sunset. So, yeah, good movie. Not as good as Son of Saul, but it can give you a little bit of a view into the way that he shows, or his style, his visual style. It's pretty cool. Actually, now I'm going to just go back to the main thing so you can see my beautiful face. You guys got your chat windows on the side. You should be able to see that no problem. Dory in the chat saying, the best years of our lives won 7 Academy Awards, and better It's a Wonderful Life for Best Picture in 1946. The director, William Wyler, also directed Ben-Hur. I saw Best Years of Our Lives in film school, probably in my American cinema class. As you say, it won quite a lot of awards. It's considered one of the better American films of the 40s. And I think a lot of that came from the fact that it was one of the first films that came out after the war, after World War II, that dealt specifically with what happened to the soldiers after they came back from World War II, after they came back from the front lines. And I believe the lead actor in the film, or one of the actors in the film, has his hand was lost in the war, and so it was replaced by a prosthetic. And the person who plays that character, it was actually a soldier who was in World War II who lost their arm and had it replaced by a claw, by a hook. And some of what the film looks at is how that person is received in society, and how his physical mark as being someone who was injured in the war serves as a kind of reminder to everyone else that the war actually happened. And because of that, people aren't too hot on the guy. They don't really want to be around him or have this kind of reminder that the war happened. They just all want to move past it. So from a social aspect, very important film. And as far as I remember, it's a very good film. It definitely deserves all the accolades that it's received over the years. I think, Dory, those are the only ones that really stood out to me that I wanted to talk about. Obviously, there's some stuff here that I haven't seen, like Easter Parade, The Flu. Submarine I have seen. It's been a while since I've seen that. That's, what's his name? That one actor directed it, who played Moss in the IT Crowd. Why can't I remember his name? Because I love him so much. Yeah, a lot of good films here, gotta say. I think I might be checking out Gilda soon, actually, because it's on the Criterion channel right now. But yeah, a lot of good films there. Sans Soleil, though, should be higher. Should be much higher. Although, I will say, and this is me being a pretentious asshole, when I was in film school, I saw Sans Soleil as part of my documentary film class. And there's an article about the film that was written by Rosenstone, I think. I think it was him. And I think the very start of the article, he says something along the lines of, I have seen Sans Soleil 7 or 8 times now, and every time I go back to it, I'm seeing it almost with fresh eyes, but I'm also seeing, I feel like I'm seeing something that I had never seen before in the film. And that now, after watching it 7 times, he feels like he's finally absorbed everything that the film is doing and everything that's there. And I think that's absolutely true. I've seen it 2 or 3 times, and I'm still just in awe of it whenever I watch it. Yeah. I don't even know what I can really say beyond that. I probably need to watch it again, actually. Oh, Dory's saying that Women in the Dunes is a Japanese 1960s version of the platform, cube, and Snowpiercer. I believe that film was directed by Teshika Hari, wasn't it? Women in the Dunes. Women in the Domes. Wait, what? The novel for the film adaptation. See this. It was Teshigahara. Woo woo woo. I mispronounced his name, but that's who I meant. Hiroshi Teshigahara. I have seen Dory, that message you just retracted, but you were correct. The other film that he's directed, I actually have seen that. Because he had 3 films that were in the Criterion Collection that were in a collection together. I believe it was Pitfall, Women in the Dunes, and maybe Face of Another or The Man with No Face. I can't quite remember. But I did see The Face of Another, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, I've heard very good things about Women in the Dunes. Maybe that would actually be an interesting discussion video, talking about Women in the Dunes alongside The Platform and Cube and Snowpiercer. These films that take a very real look at social hierarchies. And I assume... The Cube doesn't really look at social hierarchies that much. So is it more in the idea that the film is in very... it has a limited amount of places where the action takes place, and they continually kind of reuse sets but change them up a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. Let me know about that. But yeah, I could see that being kind of an interesting little video for this channel. Red wine's making me fade a little bit. I need to figure out what I'm going to do for dinner. Kind of want to get pizza delivered. Not gonna lie. Dory's asking if I've heard of the Katsi trilogy. I think I know what it is, but I just need to confirm that or not. Because to me, the Katsi trilogy That sounds like the trilogy that starts off with CANNES, which, based on this, looks like that actually is true. Yes. So yeah, that's a trilogy that features CANNES, Pao-Kayatsi, and Naya-Kayatsi. The first of which I have seen. And yeah, CANNES is must see. The music by Philip Glass, everything that is in that film is incredible. The way that it shows how modern life has kind of turned us into machines, into mechanical forms, incredible. I have not seen the other two films. I'm not sure what they do to kind of continue the themes of CANNES, but yeah, highly recommend anyone who has not seen. CANNES is a must. Like, if you take any kind of documentary film course in a film school, they should be showing you CANNES. Like, absolutely. Like, to me, that kind of film class, you have to watch like The Nook of the North, you have to watch Sans Soleil, you have to watch CANNES, you have to watch probably 7 Up or 14 Up or 21 Up, like one of the Up films. You have to watch Don't Look Back. Or sorry, not Don't Look Back. The Bob Dylan documentary that Pennebaker did. Whatever that one's called. You probably should watch that Canadian documentary, 241 Years of Resistance. Dory saying that my movie reflexes and recall are amazing. Thank you. There's so much that I don't know, but I've seen a lot. And for the stuff especially that I've seen in film school, I can keep it in my head fairly well. But honestly, just to go back to this, and I'll take us back to this other view. Looking at my diary from Letterboxd, there are some films, like, if I just like blindly scroll down to here, that I watched here, like Perfect Sense. I remember this one. I was about to say, like, I have no idea what this is, but no, I remember it. I remember it well. What did you? Oh no, that's the David Lynch one. Well, I know that why did I have some of these listed twice? There are definitely films that I have watched that I would not be able to say anything of note about because I honestly can't remember having ever seen them before. But for some of the stuff that we end up talking about on this channel, yeah, I've got it here somewhere. Sometimes the wine helps. It helps bring it out. But I appreciate that, Dory. Thank you. And I was saying that maybe you should have some pizza in the fridge. You mean the pizza that's in the freezer? I don't know. We're supposed to eat that together. So I don't know if I'm gonna have that. I want us to be able to enjoy that at some point this weekend. I just scratched my cat. He looked a little too peaceful, so I thought I'd bother him a bit. All right, everyone. This has been good. It's been an hour and 50 minutes. I'm just about ready to get off of this old computer machine and try to figure out what to do with the rest of my night. I might do... I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys, and this is not really film related, but the National Theatre in England, they have been putting up every week a play that has been filmed. They put it up. They put up Treasure Island yesterday, and the week before that they had Jane Eyre. And I love theater, as I said, and obviously we are not in a good place right now to see theater. So maybe I'll watch one of the things that they have on their YouTube channel. Treasure Island is up right now, as I say. I don't think I've ever seen Treasure Island in any form. I've probably seen the kids movie from like the Disney film from the 60s. I've probably seen that because I had Family Channel when I was a kid. Ooh, that's real blurry all of a sudden. Come on, camera, focus on this face. But yeah, it was once again amazing to talk to everybody, to get your opinions on some things, and to chat about the current state of film. I hope you check out some of these films that I recommended, or just let you know we're existing. And as it said at the bottom of the last screen, and as I've been saying at the end of the videos right now, I hope you just stay inside, and I hope you watch movies. I hope you watch more and more movies. Just see as much shit as you can. It's the best thing you can do, because films are better than everything. And having said that, I realized that I need to watch way more, because Dory saw 19 last week, and I only saw 3. So that's something that's got to change. And I don't expect Dory to watch less films. So thank you once again, everybody. I'll be back again next week, 4 o'clock Eastern Time. Might have 2 new videos for you next week. Definitely going to have one for you on Tuesday. We'll see what we'll see what happens. But until then, stay inside, stay safe, and watch all the movies you can. Cheers. Have a good weekend. Be excellent to each other.